Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's Theological Leftovers. I have something that's been running around in my head, and that's what these videos are all about. It's left over. Even though I talked about it a little bit, it seemed worth highlighting again. It was from our sermon text for this past Sunday, the 19th Sunday after Trinity. It was Ephesians chapter 4, verses 22 through 28. A great text, but there was one thing that I felt like needed to be highlighted, but it really wasn't the main point of the sermon. And it comes at the very end, verse 28, where Paul writes these words. He says, let the thief no longer steal, but rather let him labor, doing honest work with his own hands, so that he may have something to share with anyone in need. How's that for a definition of work? According to Paul, and there could be other good reasons for work, but I know there's lots of bad reasons for why people work. And maybe it's because of these bad reasons that we're seeing these crazy statistics when it comes to work, where we're not at war, where there's a bunch of potential workers that are all consolidated overseas. And so we have all these job openings. We have job openings. The unemployment rate is weird, where it doesn't seem like it seems kind of stagnant. Maybe even it's going down. But at the same time, in reality, we have just a whole bunch of jobs. Everybody's looking for workers, and there's a shortage of them. There's not a shortage of people. I don't even think there's a shortage of able-bodied people, but there's a shortage of people filling these jobs. They're just not working, apparently. And I know there's all kinds of theories about why that is, and probably there's a little bit of truth in every one of those things. And most of us are being way too simplistic about our answers to those questions. Well, that generation's lazy. Well, that's overly simplistic. Or the employers, if they paid enough, then they'd have the workers. That's overly simplistic. Everything's always more complex than just that. A little bit of truth in all of it, I'm sure. But one thing that I have not heard people talking about is the theology behind work. And I'm not surprised. The last place we look, even as Christians, unfortunately, when it comes to these type of things, is God's word. But whether or not people know what God has to say about work, they do have a theology, at least a theological, a philosophical understanding of work. And I think the philosophy, the kind of fundamental understanding people have of work is part of the problem. Paul here talks to us about maybe not the sole purpose of work, but the primary purpose of work. And it's not to give myself some false sense of security. If I work hard enough, I build up enough resources, then nothing bad can happen to me. That's baloney. That's a myth. That's false. Work, for a lot of people, equals identity. My identity, who I am, is caught up in what I do for a living. That's not good either. And we could go on with all these different reasons why people work. But if the reality is, if people are working in order to try to create a sense of security, no wonder they've stopped working, because guess what? Work can't secure you in anything. Bad things can still happen. Things can still be taken away from you. You may not be able to save up enough to resolve every potential catastrophe that might happen in your life. The idea that work can create security is baloney. And if people have come to recognize that, if that's the line that they're being fed and they recognize it's not true, then you can maybe see why hopelessness might have something to do. We see an increase in anxiety and a decrease in the number of people who are working. You might say, well, they're not working, and that's why they have anxiety. And there may be some truth to that, but it's not the whole truth. The reality is, security is not found in yourself. It's found in God. Security is found in the good news that you have a creator and he loves you And he not only gave you life, he sustains your life. He daily and richly provides. And he not only daily and richly provides for the needs of your body, but he also provides for you eternally through the gift of his Son and the forgiveness of sins that he won for you on the cross, right? So theology does have a connection to work. We need to understand our security is found in God alone. And if work has become an idol to try to help us deal with our fear, to create a false sense of security, no wonder people are fleeing work, because that idol has fallen in their life and they recognize it can't provide what they wanted it to provide. The same is true with identity. If my identity is caught up in my work, well, then I don't want to do something that doesn't reflect me, right? If it doesn't reflect me, I don't want to do it. Right? I don't want my identity to be caught up in what I do. Right? So people are looking for very particular sort of jobs, not just to put food on the table, but they're looking for jobs that reflect their personality. Right? And a lot of people aren't finding that. A lot of people perhaps are waiting for that. A lot of people are trying to create their own thing. It doesn't really have anything to do with providing or anything like that, but it has to do with, work. They're looking for work to be a mirror. And when they look in the mirror of their work, they want to see something that's pleasant, right? That makes them feel good. And if people aren't finding that in work, then maybe they run away from it. I don't know if this is making sense, but there's all these reasons that people have had historically to work, and they weren't the main thing. They weren't the primary thing. And because of that, what they ended up with idols that failed. There's a theology to work. There's a purpose for work, a God-given purpose to work, because work is a gift. And that's where we need to start. Work is a gift. It is a noble thing to work. And that needs to be said loud and clear. Even if it's work that you don't like, work is noble. It has a noble purpose. And that purpose is to love. That's the purpose of work. Not to create a mirror that you can look and admire yourself in. Not to create a fortress that makes you feel secure. No. The purpose of work, the reason why God gives the gift, is to love. And that makes work a noble task. No matter what you're doing, it's noble. I mean, unless it's immoral, unless it's not loving your neighbor, if it's taking advantage of your neighbor, that's not noble, because that's not love, right? The purpose of work is love. And I'm getting this from the verse 28. Let the thief no longer steal. In fact, I don't even know if I said that. Ephesians 4, verse 28. This was from our text this last Sunday. Let the thief no longer steal, but rather let him labor, doing honest work with his own hands. Why? So that he may have something to share with anyone in need. There is your primary purpose for work. God has given you the ability to work so that you can produce something for sharing. This is in contrast to the thief. And we're not just talking about people who break into people's houses or cars and steal stuff. We're talking about people who think about work as nothing but providing for themselves and are willing even to take advantage of other people in order to provide for themselves. That's thievery. The purpose of work, which is a gift from God, is a noble purpose, and that is to share with those in need. Now, before you all quit your jobs and start looking to create a non-for-profit because you think that's what I'm preaching at, it is interesting, the rise in non-for-profits. Brothers and sisters, you can love your neighbor in almost any kind of work. Okay, you do not need to create a non-for-profit, right? The purpose of work is to produce something to share, not just by forming non-for-profits, right? Not just by helping, people who have no food or no house or something like that. Those are all good things. But simply produce something to share. And that can come about in many different ways. You are producing something, a product, and it is sold, and you make money doing that, and you use the money that you produce in order to put food on the table for your family, to provide them with shelter and clothing and those essential sort of things. God is working through you, through your hard work, your producing finances in order to provide what we call first article gifts for your family. You're sharing with your family. You're not doing that for yourself. You're doing it for your family. But it's not even that. Even if you're a single person, you can do this sort of thing just by producing something that is edifying, something that is useful, and you don't even have to give it away, but selling it, trading it in a reasonable way, in a way that's not taking advantage of people, providing people what they need, things that are good for them, things that are edifying for them. That's sharing. That's working for sharing, right? And that can take all kinds of different forms. It can be something very pragmatic, very practical, that's necessary, right? If you put roofs on houses, thank God for you. I don't know what I'd do without my roof. The folks that came and fixed my air conditioning, replaced my air conditioning and my heater this year. It's not quite cold enough yet. We're just enjoying the fireplace, but I'm looking forward to when it gets cold, having that heat and it working. The same is true, in fact, for the fireplace. That got put in a couple of years ago, and what a blessing that has been for us in these semi-cool evenings to have a fire in the fireplace with the blower blowing that hot air out. Love it. Absolutely love it. And I thank God for those people that produced that. Some of those things are needed. Some things aren't necessarily needed, but they bring joy to my life. Right? I'm thankful for folks that provide edifying things that bring joy and happiness, laughter into my life. I mean, these are potentially all good things that folks share, and yeah, they get paid. They get paid for the product that they've produced, for their work, for the materials, and that's a reasonable thing. The purpose of work, though, is to love. That's it. Let God provide for you. Your identity is found in Christ, who has made you a child of God. Don't use work to try to establish an identity when you already have one given to you in the waters of holy baptism. Don't try to create some sense of security apart from God, because it's going to fail. Everything will, except for what God has promised. God has given you the ability to work in one fashion or another so that you can share his love that he's given to you with your neighbor, with your family. And that makes work a noble thing. So if you're just sitting around, or even if you're working 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week, you're a workaholic, whether you're sitting on the couch or you're sitting at a computer desk or you're working out in the field, if that's all about you, that's laziness. That's not the purpose of work, right? I'm not just telling people, hey, go get a job. I'm saying in whatever you do, recognize the work that you do today is noble when it's done for your neighbor. That's the purpose of work, to love your neighbor. So that's a whole bunch of stuff. The main thing that I want you to hear, that our culture needs to hear, work is noble. Working is a noble thing to do. Don't try to get out of it. Embrace it. Work. Your neighbor needs you. God bless you all. God bless your week. If you're in the Evansville area this coming weekend, we invite you to Concordia, 9 o'clock Bible class. We have 2 chapters left in Revelation, or 1.5. 10:30 worship service with Holy Communion with the Lord's Supper provided. Of course, the divine service. We have to have the Lord's Supper. And then at 3 o'clock, over at our sister congregation just north of us, Trinity in Darmstadt, Indiana, Trinity Lutheran Church is having a Lutheran community Reformation service with dinner afterwards. We'd love to have a big crowd. We got lots of choirs. We got, I think, maybe two kids choirs, a joint adult choir. So lots of music. They always do a great job with the music up there. The preacher is somebody that most of you, even if you're in Evansville, you don't know because he's fairly new to our areas over at Peace in Owensboro. Great guy, great pastor, and I'm really looking forward to hearing his sermon on Reformation Day. That's at 3 o'clock, Trinity Darmstadt. In fact, I'm even going to say, if you have to choose, not if you're a member, be a church at Concordia, but if you have to choose and you're a guest and you're in the Evansville area, you have to choose between coming here in the morning or going there in the afternoon, check out that service at Trinity Darmstadt. It's going to be awesome, and really looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing many of you guys there. If you have questions, you have thoughts about this particular video, leave some comments, and I'll respond either in another video or just respond to your comments. We'd love to hear what you think. Work is noble. Don't be afraid to work. Talk to you all later. Bye.